Today, we're hitting the road and getting under the hood of Tesla batteries.
Yeah, we're talking about the heart of these electric beasts, the batteries.
Exactly. And we're lucky enough to have insights from a real Tesla enthusiast who knows this stuff inside and out. They've broken down the different battery types you can find in Australia for us.
Yeah, so let's dive right in. The two main types you'll find in Australia are LFP and NMC batteries.
Okay, so LFP and NMC. Is there like a simple way to think about the difference between the two?
Imagine for a second a marathon runner and a sprinter.
Okay, a marathon runner and a sprinter. I like it. How does that relate to a Tesla battery?
So your LFP battery, that's like your marathon runner, it's all about endurance. LFP stands for lithium iron phosphate, and they're known for lasting a really long time.
So are you saying that LFP batteries are only found in like the base models then?
Yeah, exactly. Here in Australia, you'll find LFP batteries in the base Model 3 and Model Y. They're all about that reliable everyday performance without breaking the bank.
Makes sense. So then what about the NMC batteries? Those are the sprinters.
Yeah, you got it. NMC stands for lithium nickel manganese cobalt oxide. That's a mouthful, right?
Yeah, just a bit, haha.
But basically, it means they can pack more power into the same amount of space as the LFP batteries.
So more bang for your buck in a way.
Yeah, think of it like this. If you want those super long ranges or the really high performance models like the Model S Plaid, you're going to be looking at NMC territory.
So like choosing between a marathon runner and a sprinter, it depends on what kind of driver you are.
Exactly. Now, one thing that people often ask about is charging speed. And it's true that LFP batteries can be a bit slower to charge, especially in colder temperatures.
Right, even in Australia, it can get chilly sometimes, especially down south.
Absolutely. But unless you're constantly dealing with freezing conditions, it's not really a deal breaker.
Good to know. So it's all about understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each type, right? Now, another thing that I think a lot of people are curious about is the lifespan of these batteries. It's a big question for anyone thinking about making the switch to electric.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And to understand that, we got to talk about charge cycles.
Okay, so charge cycles, what are those exactly?
Basically, it's just how many times you can charge and discharge a battery before it starts to lose its ability to hold a charge.
So how many charge cycles are we talking about for these Tesla batteries?
Well, LFP batteries are known for having a really impressive lifespan. They can generally handle a lot more charge cycles than NMC batteries.
So if you're someone who keeps their car for a long time like me, an LSP battery might be the way to go.
Yeah, potentially. Especially when you consider how fast battery technology is advancing. What seems like a long lifespan today might be pretty average in a few years.
That's true. Things are moving so quickly these days. Speaking of which, our source actually mentioned that these Tesla batteries could potentially outlast the car itself. Is that even possible?
It's wild, right? But yeah, it's definitely something to think about. Our source threw out some numbers for us.
Okay, so like what kind of mileage are we talking about here?
So for LFP batteries, we could be looking at something like 800,000 to 1,200,000 kilometers.
Oh, wait, are you serious? That's like driving around the world a bunch of times.
Yeah, no joke. And even for the NMC batteries, you're still talking hundreds of thousands of kilometers.
That's insane. Most people don't even keep their cars for that long.
I know, right? It really changes how you think about owning an EV, especially when you factor in how quickly this tech is evolving.
That's true. What's cutting edge today could be ancient history in a few years. But okay, let's say these batteries do last that long. There are still those everyday things that people worry about, like, am I charging it right? Will I ruin the battery if I use a supercharger all the time? What does our Tesla guru have to say about all that?
Well, that's where the battery management system comes in, or BMS for short.
Okay, BMS. Break that down for me. What is it exactly?
Basically, it's like the brain of the battery. It's constantly monitoring everything and making sure it stays healthy. It's like having a little guardian angel looking after your battery.
So it takes the guesswork out of owning an EV?
Exactly. Like, one of the big ones is fast charging. People are always worried about using superchargers.
Yeah, I've heard that too. That it can wear down your battery faster. Is that true?
Well, there is some truth to it. Fast charging does put more stress on the battery compared to like plugging it in at home.
Right, that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
anything else, if you're pushing it to the limit all the time, it's going to wear out faster.
Exactly. But that's where the BMS comes in again. It regulates the charging process. So even when you're using a supercharger, it makes sure the battery doesn't get overloaded.
So it's like having a built-in safety net.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And same with that thing about not leaving your car plugged in overnight. It's not really something to stress about.
Okay, good to know. So it sounds like Tesla has really thought of everything to make these batteries last as long as possible. But what about the cost? Even if they last a long time, eventually you'll need to replace them. And that can't be cheap, right? Yeah, that's the big question, right? But our source actually made a good point about that.
Yeah, it's easy to forget with how new this tech seems,
Yeah.
but battery prices have been dropping like crazy.
Oh, yeah. How much are we talking?
Get this, 97% over the last 30 years.
97%.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And the predictions are saying that'll keep going, like another 50% drop just next year.
Wow. So by the time someone actually needs to replace their battery, it could be like half the price or even less.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's so different than like with a gas car. You're not just paying for the battery, you're basically investing in a power source that could outlive a few cars.
That's a cool way to think about it. It really is a whole different ballgame. So for anyone listening who's thinking about taking the plunge and going electric, maybe even getting a Tesla themselves, what would you say is the main thing to remember from our little deep dive today?
I'd say don't overthink it. Tesla's put a lot of work into making their batteries last, and they've built in all these safeguards. The tech is there to keep things running smoothly.
It's like they've thought of everything to put people's minds at ease.
Exactly. And the exciting part is that this is just the beginning. It's only going to get better and cheaper from here.
Well said. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. But don't hit the brakes on your curiosity just yet. While our source focused on how Tesla has designed their batteries to last forever, what about the impact of actually making those batteries in the first place? That's something to think about. Until next time, deep diving friends, keep those engines charged and those minds curious.